Here at Labour's conference, party leader Sir Keir Starmer has spoken out on the fuel crisis, urging the Prime Minister to get a grip on the situation. But he opened a further rift with the left wing of his party when he refused to back a motion proposing a £15 an hour minimum wage. Nevertheless, that got overwhelming backing on the conference floor. Our political editor, Gary Gibbon, is with me. Gary, tell us about the day.
Well, Keir Starmer had been accused by a few people in the Labour Party of not finding his way into the sort of national conversation about the fuel crisis. He's tried to correct that today. He's given interviews talking about how Boris Johnson, in his view, ignored warnings about this crisis sort of coming towards him. He's tweaked his own line. Not so long ago, he was talking about needing 100,000 visas for lorry drivers to come over here from other countries. He's now saying we may need fewer visas, but longer visas. And of course, when he comes here tomorrow to give his speech, you can expect him to talk about it then. And people around him are saying they sense an opening here for Labour, from their focus groups, from their polling. The public was happy to give Boris Johnson the benefit of the doubt on COVID. How could anybody have known how to deal with it if there were mistakes made? Anyone would have made them. That was the kind of stuff they were picking up on that. On this crisis, they think there is an opening on maybe some other crises as well. An opening for Keir Starmer to get in there and say, actually, I'd be more competent. Meanwhile, the backdrop to this speech is the drumbeat, the hostile drumbeat that the left is continuing. They feel that Keir Starmer has picked a fight with them, and clearly they are fully ready, quite a chunk of them, to fight back. We had the resignation of a shadow cabinet member, pretty unusually in the middle of conference yesterday. We had a trade union disaffiliating today, the sort of stuff that creates real waves in a place like this, or at least the left will be hoping that. Who knows what we'll get tomorrow, maybe another little announcement like that, maybe a bit of heckling. I think people are prepared for that. But this is a very important speech, and it will be defining, people are expecting, what exactly it is that Keir Starmer is about and what makes him different from the last Labour leader. He stood on a unity ticket when he went for the leadership of this party, and he said he wouldn't trash Jeremy Corbyn. But a lot of the left, looking at what's been happening here, feel that is the journey he is on, and they're waiting to see exactly how he phrases that tomorrow in his speech here. Important speech. He's been saying for ages, COVID's kept me from my party. I've been longing to get in a room with them, address them and the rest of it. Well, here's your moment. And, you know, he really does need to make that work. I caught up with him a little earlier for an interview, and I started by asking him about that fuel crisis. What would he do if he was in number 10?
So if I was the Prime Minister, I would say to him, take responsibility for the situation, get a grip and take the necessary action. And the action I would take today, if I was in his shoes, is to prioritise key workers, although I can't believe we're having to have a discussion about whether teachers and nurses need to be prioritised to get to work, and also issue enough visas to cover the situation, starting now and lasting at least 6 months, because certainly in the haulage sector, they don't think a 3-month visa is going to work. They're also very worried that the visas that the Prime Minister's talking about aren't going to happen for weeks, possibly until November. So he just needs to get a grip. You can campaign in slogans, but you can't govern in slogans.
You've been on the record saying about 100,000 visas might be needed.
I said a sufficient number. The vacancies for lorry drivers is between 90 and 100,000. But this is whack-a-mole. You know, you go here, get the drivers there, and there'll be a shortage somewhere else, and then there'll be less food on the shelves. It needs a coherent plan, and the government has utterly failed to plan for this, utterly failed to plan. There were consequences as soon as we took a decision to leave the EU. Whether you voted leave or remain, there were obvious consequences. The government hasn't planned for it, and we're in the crisis that we're in, and it's the latest of a series of crises.
Can I ask you about what you've been talking about, what the party's been talking about at the weekend here, and the rows that are going on, the friction that's around this conference? When you launched your leadership campaign at the beginning of last year, you said, we cannot fight the Tories if we are fighting each other. How's that going?
Well, let me go through the change that we've made this week, because on Sunday we made 3 very important changes for our party. First of them was to close the door on anti-Semitism, and I made that a #1 priority from the moment I took over as leader. There's more that we need to do, but we closed the door on that. The second was to change our party so that we are not focused on talking to ourselves, but actually focused on and talking to the country and getting ourselves in a position to win the next general election.
But in the process, you are talking to yourself.
Well,
that's the nature of the business.
Well, of course,
it always is the nature of the business, isn't it? It's what you were warning about when you stood for the leadership. If we cannot fight the Tories when we're fighting each other, and that is what you're doing.
We had to change the rules in order to face the country. Now, of course, it's easy for you and others to say, well, that's a bit internal. We had to do that. And not,
I'm quoting you.
No,
I mean,
but just hear me out. It was a tough decision to change those rules. Lots of people were saying to me, Keir, I can see the case for change, but wouldn't it be better to delay? I took the view that if there's a difficult, tough decision to take, then strong leadership requires you to take that decision and to do it now. And we've done it.
Could you see the case for change when you were running for the leadership? Because you didn't tell anyone you were going to do this.
I told everybody in the leadership campaign. I ended every rally, every hustings with the same message. I said, you've heard from me, you've heard from the other candidates about the wonderful things that we're going to do, but if we don't win an election, none of this is going to come to
yes,
pass.
That's not quite the same thing
win an
as
election.
telling about 50% of your vote probably came from people who'd voted for Jeremy Corbyn in the past. You were wooing them and you weren't telling them you were going to do things like this, and they feel duped.
I made it absolutely clear that we needed to change the party to win a general election.
I've been going back through your leadership speeches, I can't find a speech where you told anyone you were going to do the sort of thing that you just did now.
Well, look, we lost in 2019, and the idea that we don't need to change, I think, only needs to be stated.
What do you say to those people in there who feel hurt? They supported you. I'm pointing at your conference centre. They're on the floor there. They might be heckling you tomorrow. Who feel hurt, feel that you pulled the wool over their eyes?
Well, look, I put my proposals to party conference on Sunday, and party conference passed them. Some people don't like that. That's what happens when you change. But I didn't change those rules on my own on Sunday. I asked the party to follow me in these proposals, and my party and our movement followed me on those proposals. So the position we've got to now is not my personal position imposed on the party. The party took a decision on Sunday that it would close the door on anti-Semitism and change and face the future.
So it was always in your mind, this, because I was talking to Len McCluskey yesterday, and he said, I still can't work it out. Is Keir Starmer a babe in the woods or a Machiavelli? Did he always plan this?
I think, if you ask Len, I think you'll find he was backing another candidate pretty heavily. So Len was never supporting me in my leadership. But he didn't see this one coming, like a few others in there.
Well,
look, my test of whether I've changed the party and got us into a position to face the electorate is not whether Len McCluskey likes it or not, it's whether we are in a position to reconnect with the voters that we need to reconnect with and put an alternative case for government.
You know, the reason I'm asking all this is because you make the accusation that Boris Johnson isn't trustworthy, and there are people now in your own party who are saying the same about you. So in the interest of openness, can you say that the reason you've changed the rules for the leadership election is to make absolutely sure that the door is closed to the possibility of another leader like Jeremy Corbyn turning up? That's why you've done it, isn't it?
My central aim has been the same throughout these changes, which is to allow our party to face the country. We were spending months and months...
I'm asking you...
Just hear me out. We were spending months and months and months of MPs in the year we were going to have a general election, spending more time talking to their members because they were scared about getting deselected. That we cannot allow that to happen again. I won't let it happen again. And now I've got the changes that allow us to face the country and be in a position to put forward a programme as an alternative government.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.